What's up and welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to try out something a little different. I'm going to be telling you about the time that I rented Borderlands. And I'm just going to have to give you some backstory to further explain the situation and what was going on at the time. So just bear with me if I ramble a little bit, because everything I say will lead to the eventual story of me renting Borderlands. So just know I am going to give you a little bit about my life going into this moment and just me as an individual at this point. Not only was this my first experience with what would become my favorite franchise in gaming history, but Borderlands is a game that holds a very special place in my heart, in the same way that Dead Rising 1 will forever be engraved in my skull. Love that damn game, man. And while Borderlands 1 and Dead Rising are both super rough around the edges, and also dated to an extent, and in some way, it's almost like what Super Mario Bros. Is to your parents. Sure, you're always going to have that nostalgia and flashback to those memories that you remember when you first started playing the game. And I'm sure a lot of you, just like myself, revisit those same memories in your head when you are going back to an old game that you've already played before. But fuck, can we not just have favorite things that are also connected to our childhood without it being assumed that we just have the blinders on? Because even though nostalgia may play a part into my love for Borderlands 1, I still think the game holds up even today. Okay, so with that being said, I've loved these games ever since I was very young, and all throughout my life as well, as I'm sure a lot of you have. And the reason I say that is I can see the age demographic, and most of you are actually right around my age, according to YouTube at least. I'm 20 years old, and myself, and as well as a couple other smaller Borderlands content creators, we have a very unique perspective on the subject, as we not only grew up with it, but I've quite literally seen everything. Now, with all of that being said, let me glaze, motherfucker. Welcome to Stories with Hellfire. I hope you enjoy your stay as you listen in on the past Borderlands journey of yours truly. So we're going to have to roll the clock all the way back to 2010. Because obviously at the age of 6 and 5 when the game released in 2009, I wasn't there day one like, hey, give me Borderlands. So to give you a little insight on my past, my parents really weren't involved too much in my life. I was raised by my grandparents, and no offense to my parents, I have plenty of love for them as well, even though that's a complicated one. But without my grandparents, I wouldn't have discovered Borderlands more than likely. Hell, I probably wouldn't have even made this YouTube channel, just because my whole life would have been completely different if things didn't happen the way they did. And I'm forever blessed that it worked out the way that it turned out. So now that we have that little bit of backstory out of the way, at my grandparents' house, I had an Xbox 360 that my dad actually got for me after he got out of jail. He got some money for some shit that he did while he was in there, and he spent some of it on the 360 for my 5th birthday. Which, hey, even though my dad isn't to thank for Borderlands, he is to thank for getting me that 360, and for that, love you, Dad. Moving on, so fast forward a year after that, obviously I don't have many games. I'm 6 years old. I don't think there's many 6-year-olds scrounging up enough money to buy $60 video games. As a matter of fact, I can actually remember all the games I had at this point. I had these SmackDown vs. Raw games, which I'll throw them up on screen, and Call of Duty 3. Which, yeah, the public consensus is that Call of Duty 3 is dog shit, but I didn't know that at the time, and I actually really enjoyed it for my first Call of Duty game. So my gaming experiences at my own home had been limited at this time, but still grateful to have these options at all. My dad did have a PS2 that he got for me at his place, but that stuff had all been packed up by this point, and I hadn't even thought about it or seen it in a while. No need to ramble on that, so I can remember that it was 2010 because it was right around the time SmackDown vs. Raw 2011 was getting ready to come out. And I can remember just sitting in the living room one day, and my grandma asked me if I want to go to the local video store, which also has video games, and then she offered to get me a game. And I'm sure you can imagine how ecstatic I was by that offer. So I jumped my happy little ass up, and it was pretty late, I remember. I think we were also going to get dinner or something, but I can't exactly remember. Either way, we drive for what feels like an hour when you're a kid. In reality, we were only 10 minutes from the place. So we roll on in, and I'm so young, I'm still sitting in the back seat. And just to put it into perspective what this video store was like, imagine like a knockoff local Blockbuster. That's pretty much what it was, you know. You were able to rent movies, video games. I'm sure they maybe even had music CDs. I'm not too sure about that, but I know for a fact they had all kinds of different movies and games for any console at the time. And if you don't know what Blockbuster is, it was a chain of movie/video stores where you could rent or buy different items, you know, depending on whatever it was. They would always have all the new releases up for rent, and then of course they you know, you could purchase them there as well. Anyway, Blockbuster went bankrupt many years ago now, and I'm not going to tell you the name of the place that I rented Borderlands from, as it was a local spot. This wasn't a chain like Blockbuster was. And yeah, I'm not trying to dox myself, but I walk in and I'm just amazed by everything in the store. I look around and I see different people at the register, probably checking out different items, you know, renting shit, buying shit, whatever. And there was maybe like one other dude off in the corner of the store. Not too many people in the store, so we just begin looking around for the Xbox 360 section. And then I come across it, the almighty Xbox 360 rental section. As my eyes light up, I start to scour through the shelves. I should also say my grandparents didn't get Wi-Fi until 2013, so I really didn't know much about any new games coming out at the time, or even what was going on with the internet in general. Which, good on them. I don't think I really should have been on the internet at 6 years old either. So the only games I knew about were the ones that I saw in commercials on TV. I should also mention that my eyesight is completely dog shit, and I bet even at 6 years old, Hellfire's vision was damn near the same. And the reason I know this is because they put me in like an eye therapy when I was in 3rd grade, and at 6 I would have been in like 2nd grade. So I'm sure I was blinder than a bat even as a kid. So I'm looking, I'm going through these 360 games, and I remember a couple of them catching my eye, but there's only 2 that I remember in specific. I find Madden 10. They even had a standee up for Madden 10 in the store. I can remember seeing that so vividly. And man, what a dope cover art, as well as a badass game. And I had the Xbox 360 copy of it sitting right there in my hand, and I'm debating on getting it as my rental. But as I'm looking at Madden 10, I see this other game in the background. Just a little game called Borderlands. I picked it up as the cover intrigued or broke my little 6-year-old brain. Questions like, why is this guy who's dressed like he's going to a Halloween party have his hands made into a gun and pointing them at his head? But I was immediately pulled in and wanted it. So in one hand, I had Madden 10. In the other, Borderlands. I look up at my grandma as she can obviously tell that I'm trying to decide which game to take. She then tells me that it's going to be one or the other, which is a good life lesson or even just tidbit of advice for anybody with kids out there. Just because you give an inch doesn't mean they should take a mile. One game was all I needed, and I wasn't even thinking of both at the time. So I sit there and I stare at both of the cases, looking at the pictures on the back of the box, until I decided Borderlands is what I wanted. So I set Madden 10 back down on the shelves and I handed Borderlands to my grandma. We walk up to the counter, and while waiting in line, I can remember vividly seeing a poster for the new Battle Los Angeles movie, which like a year later when I did end up getting to watch that movie, I can remember even thinking it was terrible when I was a kid. But the reason I mention that is that I can remember being so excited for it just because of the trailers on TV and all the different posters that I was seeing. The way you view things when you're a kid is just so different than when you're an adult. But anyways, we get to the register, and of course the dude gives her the mature 18 plus blah 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 spiel. She thinks on it for a minute but ends up going with it anyway. And now I've got the game in my possession for the next 48 hours. The clock has began to tick, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that going home after that was like Juice WRLD Bandit era for me. We were out that bitch and I was heading back to my living room to put this game in. And that was exactly what I did. I slid Borderlands in the disk tray, closed it up, and I started it up, and the intro played. My God, I'd show you more of it if YouTube wasn't such a piece of shit with their copyright system. Easily my favorite intro in all of Borderlands, and there's no question about it. So simple, but so badass, and gets its point across. It's straight to the point, it's not long and drawn out. Of course, my introduction to Cage the Elephant and the classic song that is Ain't No Rest for the Wicked. Now, of course, that's a little bit of my nostalgia coming out there, but once that cutscene ended, and 6-year-old me got to choose who I was playing, at 6 years old, with the gaming experience I had had up to this point, I was nowhere near ready for what was ahead of me. So I selected Roland, because of course I did. Call of Duty was the only shooter I had played up to this point, and he looked the coolest to the 6-year-old me that was about to get off the bus for the first time. Upon getting off the bus, you were greeted by Claptrap, and my 6-year-old self said, nope, not listening. I'm trying to look around at this world I've been placed into. Please shut up and let me look around at the rocks and dirt. This digital wasteland had me so immersed that I completely forget the core element about a video game. It does take some amount of attention span, and you do need to pay attention. I was so immersed in just the graphics and the way the game looked that after I got control of the character, I took a walk, and not in the right direction either. And keep in mind, in the original Borderlands 1, it didn't have a mini-map like you'll see in the footage. On the enhanced version of the game that I'm playing on PC, it has a mini-map, and it's a lot easier to tell how big the map is and your limits and stuff like that. But with no mini-map, all I had was this area that I could look around and walk. So I continued to walk around, opening toilets, crates, and then I kept walking, trying to jump the gates at each end of this first area, trying to jump over rocks, just going around in circles over and over and over again. Just trying so desperately to try and figure out what this game is about and what the hell am I supposed to do. I had a gun. Maybe I was meant to shoot something to open the gate. What the hell do I know? After wandering around for about an hour and without even thinking of going back to talk to Claptrap, I started to fire my gun at random things that I thought might help me progress. Yeah, shooting rocks and fences is really going to do the trick. So I shoot every bullet in the assault rifle until I'm completely juiced out. So now I'm running around with no bullets and nothing but a gun to click, and I've already been playing for about an hour at this point. Yeah, running around in that first area for an hour without encountering Claptrap. You seriously can't make this stuff up. How hard was it to just walk towards the middle where the fucking robot was, dumbass? But no, I just continued running around for another 2 hours.
What the fuck?
By this point, I'm so frustrated, I'm not understanding what I'm doing wrong or what I'm supposed to accomplish in this video game. After running around the football field-sized area for the 90th time or so, I gave up. I turned off the Xbox 360 and I went to bed. At 6 years old, I couldn't comprehend that you need to talk to the robot who, you know, was literally talking to you right after you get off the bus. And they also mention Claptrap while you're on the bus. I'm pretty sure Marcus says something about him. And sure, after about 3 hours of play, it was about time for bed anyway. Immersed in the graphics and unique look of the game, I wanted to see what it was about. But instead of trying out the game once more the next day, I had to go to school. And the next day when I got back home, I did just that. Well, I tried. I turned on the 360 and was about to play when dinner time. Gotta eat. So after I ate with my grandma and grandpa, I went back to the living room and sat down on the floor in front of my Xbox 360. Thinking I was going to play some Borderlands, that same window of when I had started playing the previous day was open. I knew I only had a couple hours to play before I went to bed. So instead of wasting my night walking in circles, I decided to take the game out and put in SmackDown vs. Raw 2007 instead. And the next day after school, I went to the same video store and returned Borderlands and took Madden 10 home. Even though at the time it didn't seem like anything, I had just experienced a core element of my life. In what may seem like a completely pointless story or just ridiculous chain of events, it was only a year later when my grandma ended up purchasing Borderlands 1 for me, and I did get through the opening area, making what Marcus said before I got off the bus that first time even more true.
Well, we're here. Don't worry about saying goodbye. I'm sure we'll be doing this all again soon enough. Get off my bus.
And yeah, even though I had no clue what the hell I was doing at 6 years old, I'm sure there had to have been another person out there who was around the same age who had a similar experience. Being that young, you can understand that a game like Borderlands is pretty hard to comprehend. But then again, I can also see you thinking it's pretty sad that I couldn't even get past the first area. I didn't even get to fight any enemies, for the love of God. But without that rental, I probably would have never bought the game later on in life. I just wanted to explain why it was so important to me, as well as how ironic things can end up turning out in life. At the time, I was confused, disappointed, and frustrated. Now, I look back at that moment and I laugh, smile, and wonder. What if I did get through that opening area at 6 years old? Would I have been killed immediately? Would I have just got stuck at the area right after? Something so small like getting further in the game during that rental could have changed my whole perspective on Borderlands as a kid. But since I didn't even get to try it, I knew that I hadn't fully experienced what Borderlands is, which is what made me want to try it again later on in life when it was a little cheaper. Even though I was upset by my first experience, it was something that I needed to go through to get to the spot where I could actually play the game. So, while I think this is a hilarious first introduction to the series, it makes me wonder, how did you first hear about Borderlands? I would love to hear some of your early memories and experiences down in the comments below. And if you would like to hear more stories from my past experiences with the franchise, please let me know in the comments below as well. Show your support by leaving a like below and subscribe if you guys are new. I've got some pretty good stories I'd like to tell you, so if you guys are interested, I'd be more than willing to share. And that's really all I've got for you guys today. Like I said, I hope you all did enjoy today's video. If you did, make sure to smash the like button and subscribe, like I just said, if you motherfuckers are new. I really want to hear more about your guys' early experiences with the game. Was your first game Borderlands 2? Was it Borderlands 3? Was it Borderlands 1? Because we all love this series for a reason, no matter what game you came in on. And without you, there is no Borderlands community. Without you, there is no me. And without us, there is no community. I think that's a good note to leave us on today. I really hope you did enjoy your stay. Please stay safe out there. Just know I love you all to death. I've got another video coming for you on Sunday, so stay tuned for that one. I may even have one coming out Saturday. Who knows? Just keep your eyes peeled. Give me a follow on Twitter. And with that, I will see you all in the next one.